This is the seventh program in the series Finding, Organizing and Using Medical Information, created by the Network of African Medical Librarians and Deans with support from the U.S. National Library of Medicine, Bethesda, Maryland.
Hello, my name is Christine Wanyuma Kanyengo. I'm a Deputy Librarian at the University of Zambia. I'm presenting this scholarly communication module on behalf of a colleague, Sarah Mbaga, from Albert Cook Medical Library, Makerere University, Uganda. Scholarly communication is the creation, transformation, dissemination, and preservation of knowledge related to teaching and research. It's the system that is employed to create, distribute, and preserve results of academic activities. This module will give you a general overview of some of the key processes in scholarly communication. Generally, academic writing fulfills one of or more of the following conditions. One is objective reporting of controlled research conducted voluntarily or at the request of one of your lecturers. The other objective is a term paper meant for submission in partial fulfillment of an award, a thesis, dissertation, or project meant for submission for the end of your program that you are doing. In this module, we are going to concentrate mainly on a long-term paper. What is a long-term paper? A long-term paper is a research paper written by students over an academic term or semester, which accounts for a large amount of a grade and makes up much of the course. It's generally intended to describe events, concepts, or argue points. It is a written original work discussing a topic in detail, usually several pages in length, and is often due at the end of a semester. What then is the process of preparing a long-term paper? There are several processes involved in preparing a long-term paper. The first step is to identify the components of a paper. Usually a paper will consist of a title. A title clearly describes contents of the paper, so it's sort of a summary. Then the next thing is an author. Author ensures that you recognize the writer of that paper. You have an abstract. An abstract describes what was done. Then in certain instances, you have keywords, but that is dependent on each particular lecturer. The keywords ensures that the article is correctly identified in case it's indexed or abstracted. Then you need an introduction. An introduction will explain the problem. Then you also need methods. Methods explain how the data was collected. Then you need a section for results. Results describe what was discovered during your research. Then you have a discussion. A discussion discusses the implications of the findings of your research study. Then you also need a conclusion. A conclusion sums up the whole long-term paper. And lastly, you need acknowledgements, references, appendices. Acknowledgements ensure that all those people who helped you in the research process are acknowledged and recognized. The reference assures that previously published works or unpublished that you have cited or used to form up your ideas during your research are acknowledged and recognized. Then in certain instances, your lecturer or professor might require you to put appendices because certain appendices might amplify the findings. So for instance, certain pictures that you have taken during your study, or maybe certain diagrams that you have identified as having a bearing on the topic that you're writing on. So the next step that you need to do is to choose a topic. Generally, a topic should not be very broad. It should be very focused so that it will be easier for you to achieve the intended objectives. Once you've chosen the topic, you need to find the sources of information. Usually the sources of information are places like the library or certain places where you think you might find the appropriate information that meets the topic. Once you've located the sources of information, you need to move on to the gathering information stage. This is the process where now you identify particular pieces of information or data that is going to fulfill the objectives of your topic. Once you've gathered that information, it's important that that information is in an ordered fashion and you know where you can exactly find them when you need it. After you've gathered that information, you make a tentative outline. The tentative outline will assist you when you come to the writing stage so that you follow a logical sequencing. After that, you need to organize your notes so that when you start writing, it will be easy for you to follow the notes in meeting the objectives of that particular topic. Once you've organized your notes, you start writing the first draft. After you write your first drafts, you need to move to the stage where you revise, you edit, and revise and edit the draft. At this stage, there will be so many revisions and so many drafts. But because you're in an academic environment, that is expected. Then the final step is to type the final paper. And usually, it's always good to consult with your supervisor or professor so that you know what their requirements are. However, when writing, one should be conscious of several things in terms of styles of writing. One of them is to be clear and concise. You write briefly and to the point. Say what you mean clearly and avoid embellishments or unnecessary words or phrases. Brevity is very important in academic writing. Use of the active voice, shorten sentences that might have been longer. Then also you need to be critical, because in academic writing, there are certain things that you come across when you're gathering information that might not necessarily support your idea or your topic, but it might amplify on the other side of the argument to the topic that you have chosen. Then also direct the paper to the audience that your paper wants to communicate with. Then you need to avoid abbreviations. If you have to use abbreviations, always explain them. Use past tense. Research papers reflect work that has been completed, and therefore they can never use the present tense. First and third person in academic writing differ, and it's always preferable to use the third person when you are doing an academic paper. Also use active verbs whenever possible. Writing that overly uses passive verbs is not good to read and almost always results in more words than is necessary to say the same thing. Then there are certain things that you need to avoid in academic writing. Such things as plagiarism. Plagiarism is the use or close imitation of the language and thoughts of another author, and then you present them as your own. Within academia, plagiarism by students, professors, or researchers is considered as academic dishonesty or academic fraud, and offenders sometimes are subject to academic discipline or even including expulsion if you're a student. In order to avoid plagiarism, it's always good to cite, and there are several styles that are available for use to people in the academic world, for instance, Harvard or APA. But you need to check with your university to find out the style that is in use. There are some don'ts in communication, in scholarly communications. You need to avoid the use of jargon or complex technical terms. Avoid vague and general sweeping statements. Avoid mixing facts with opinions, views, or perceptions. Avoid offensive phrases such as, without wasting your time any further, I hope I'm not bothering you, just to fill up the number of pages that are required. If you need any further help in scholarly communication, Please visit your nearest medical library and talk to your medical librarian. Thank you for listening.
Please see all the 7 training programs in our YouTube series.